In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
The ruling on the field stands.
We deliver jerseys, funny foam fingers, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian Memphis Tigers podcast. This is your host, Memphis Tigers basketball beat writer Drew Hill. I am joined by Memphis Tigers football writer Jonah Jordan, as always, and special guest, Memphis Tigers, well, just columnist in general, but a lot of Memphis Tigers, Geoff Calkins. All right, this is a special edition of the podcast, obviously, because we've had a lot of news since we recorded last time.
A lot of news.
Yes, James Wiseman was in a lawsuit with the NCAA. He receives a temporary restraining order. He plays against Illinois, Chicago, and against Oregon. He was set to have an injunction hearing on November the 18th. That was maybe going to determine if he was going to get to play out the rest of the year. And then they go to trial and maybe Memphis gets punished. None of that happens. He withdraws from the lawsuit today on Thursday. And here we are now waiting to see what the NCAA is going to do in terms of suspension, forfeiture, vacancies of the games that he's already played in, and what's next. Geoff, what do you make of all of this?
I think it's the proverbial win-win. I mean, in the end, if you look at what Memphis, despite all the doomsaying on every side, this is going to be the end of the Memphis program. They're going to be hit with a bag of hammers, or this is going to be the end of the NCAA. This was never going to be any of those things. As I've been writing recently, a settlement is what everybody had in mind, what everybody wanted to get done, and now what has gotten done. In fact, the truth is, if you go back to last Friday and look at the University of Memphis' original statement, what they said is, we are looking forward to a speedy and fair resolution of this matter. And so here you are 6 days later, and you have a speedy and hopefully fair resolution of the matter. The NCAA insisted that James Wiseman withdraw the lawsuit because they don't negotiate with terrorists, essentially, is what they mean. So that's what they're saying, essentially. It's like an NFL team that doesn't negotiate until you report back to camp, right? They have this rule. We don't well, that may be on its face, that's true, but obviously all sides know exactly, or certainly have a very good sense of what the compromise is. And people have asked me who's going to look like they won. What's imperative for a settlement like this to be reached is for both sides to be able to claim that they won. And so there will be something in this settlement that makes it look like NCAA will say they won. I presume the 2 games in which James played won't count as wins for Memphis. And so they can say, see, look at that. If you play them, they don't. And I presume, though, that the extent that any suspension will be shorter than it might otherwise have been. It won't be draconian. And that's what Memphis will be able to point at. And so James will be back playing. He'll sit out a bunch of games, maybe 5, maybe 6, maybe 4, somewhere in there, I imagine. And then we'll move on.
And we expect a resolution to come.
Well, it's funny because I
have
heard different things on that. So yes. The truth matters, it doesn't really matter. He's not going to play Saturday, So whether it comes out today or Monday, it doesn't really matter. He's not going to play Saturday, and it's just a matter of
waiting for
the proverbial shoe to drop, right? But I think I'll be stunned if it's not something along those lines. If it's not, let's say 4 to 6 and 2. They vacate those 2 games. And my understanding is you can call it a forfeiture or you can call it vacating. Typically, if you vacate someone's wins, like what happened when John Calipari lost those wins when he was at Memphis, Memphis doesn't get the wins, but John on his record doesn't have L's, right?
Yeah.
There's no L's on John's record.
Right.
And so I suspect that's what happens here. I don't believe in the Selection Sunday room they'll be saying, what do you do with this loss to South Carolina State? That's a bad loss at home. No, they'll realize what this was.
So the 2 questions I've gotten since since this morning, I mean, Go Tigers 247 initially wrote the story, and then Gary, and then Shams, everybody was breaking this news, and immediately the two questions that people were sending me the most is, one, why is Penny not getting in trouble for this? What's Penny's punishment in all of this? And then two, what does this mean for the NCAA tournament? You just answered that, but the question remains: do you all know? Do you all have a sense of what does this mean for Penny, and will he see any kind of punishment in this? Because it does seem like we have more questions than answers right now.
Yeah, I
have
don't
no
think
sense of that.
he should be
I have
punished.
not heard any implication that Penny will or should be punished. I have not heard anything to that effect. He didn't do it. I don't know the thinking behind it. He obviously was not a coach when he did this. And so, it was interesting. If you look at the University of Memphis' statement today, they released in the wake of James Wiseman's decision to withdraw the lawsuit, they said, yeah, we're withdrawing the lawsuit. Essentially, they said, but we have been assured that the NCAA understands the unique circumstances of this case. And so I think that's what they're pinning this on. Ultimately, they'll explain this away by saying, yeah, Penny didn't get whacked. We only gave him 4 games. Because come on, this fact pattern is never going to happen again. Where a guy who wasn't the coach, was a high school coach, former alum of the school, happened to give $1 million, then went on to become it's going to be put in its own little box. It'll be the Penny Hardaway, James Wiseman box, and that's that.
My thing has always been, though, is that the reason that came up is because if this had been disclosed beforehand, before like when Penny got to Memphis, if this had come up, if he had been vetted, if this had been something that they had talked about, would he have been able to recruit James to Memphis? Here's
the truth. It didn't come up. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It doesn't matter. It maybe not. Maybe he would have been told at that stage not to. Honestly, that suggests what a lot of people have said. Well, why didn't they discover? Maybe it was a good thing they didn't discover this at the outset.
Yeah.
From the perspective of Memphis, maybe it's a good thing that they didn't discover this at the threshold. Didn't have an AD coach relationship that turned this up.
So let me ask this. You mentioned both sides being able to claim victory over this. If you are Memphis, what is your victory? Like,
if you're Memphis, the
is
victory's
it getting
clear.
him back for Tennessee? Is that what?
Oh no,
what you
I
can
think
claim as
no,
victory, or
no,
just
I
getting
think-
him back in general?
I think the victory from the Memphis perspective, this is the way they would phrase it. If I'm speculating, but this is the way they would phrase it. They'd say, "Listen, we were going to get effed by the NCAA. They'd been going around on this since January. They changed their mind. We could be still sitting here with no resolution. The NCAA has had people sit out indefinitely. They've had people sit out all season long. The victory is that we got a resolution within a week. We know now when James is going to be back on the court. He's going to be back. Sure, we have to. Now, it'll be harder to spin if it was an 18 games. It would be harder to spin that. But if it's 4 games, if he's back by Tennessee, and I expect him to be back by Tennessee, Tennessee would be how many?
6.
Okay, so Tennessee would be 6, and then you're back for Tennessee.
Yep.
Yeah, if it's that, I think you can absolutely, Memphis can claim that as a victory, and the NCAA can also, because they'll say, look at Chase Young. They didn't cost him any games, and he got back quicker and like that. So that's how both sides will be able to claim victory. But for the Memphis perspective, this may be true or not. They don't think that they would have gotten this.
Yes, that's the point I was
But
going to make.
for
the lawsuit.
what they did. They think they created leverage that caused the swift resolution of this and caused a shorter and fairer disposition. Now, whether that's true or not, I can't say, but I will tell you that is I believe to be their
It appears
perspective.
that way at the very least. Like, you don't know, like, they could have totally drug their feet on this, and it would have taken them forever to make a decision.
They could have, right.
Had Memphis not, 1, started this lawsuit, and 2, created an absolute PR disaster for the NCAA.
They created
with
a sense of
everybody.
urgency
Yeah.
on the side of everybody. I'm very clear that both sides, they did not want that hearing to go forward Monday. And so that created a deadline. They didn't want to have the injunction hearing. And so the idea was to get this resolved by then. It created a deadline, which created this moment, which as a resolution. And so I do think there's something to, listen, this school's history is not one that suggests you should just trust the process when it comes to the NCAA, and they didn't. And so here we are.
So you mentioned Chase Young. say James does get just the 6-game suspension, something that I think kind of helped Chase Young in the end is that he had already paid off said loan. Will that be a step in this process that Penny and
I suspect they'll have to pay back the money. Yes. I also think another way to look at the Chase Young thing is that one reason that he got what he got is because Memphis existed. In other words, how many people yesterday pointed out when the Chase Young penalty came down, boy, that's quick. That's quick. And see what happens when you play ball? You don't think when the NCAA makes that decision that they are aware that they are contrasting what happened in Chase Young. I think it's entirely. Now maybe you think I'm wearing the tinfoil hat now, but I think it's entirely possible that as they decided Chase Young, they're thinking we're going to show the difference between people who play ball and don't. And sure enough, they got the reaction that they wanted from everybody yesterday. But I know that there are certainly people who believe that it was to the benefit of Chase Young that the Memphis was not cooperating. And so they're like, okay, well, we'll just move this Chase Young thing along.
So, Drew, say you don't have James for the next 6 games. What does that mean for them on the court? Can they weather this storm?
Oh, I mean, it's like, of course they're not as good without James Wiseman as they are with James Wiseman. We saw it firsthand. Like, we saw them not look so great in the 2 exhibition games, and then all of a sudden look like this powerhouse juggernaut against South Carolina State when James scores 28 points. Of course, it's a big loss on the floor. But you look at the schedule, especially if they have them back by Tennessee, it's not particularly daunting. You have games against Alcorn State, and you have a game against UAB at UAB, but that's not really intimidating.
You got Ole Miss.
You've got Ole Miss.
NC State, you got Ole Miss.
That's one where it's like, okay, but NC State hasn't looked particularly impressive either because they lost to Josh Pastner and Georgia Tech to open the season.
Hey, don't hate on Josh Pastner.
And played a couple of close games against inferior opponents after that. I can see them still, even if they lose, James, maybe losing one game, they could win all their games if they have them back by Tennessee. I think they might need him back by the time they make that trip to Tennessee. So we'll see.
That Tennessee trip is going to be brutal for him. If he plays at Tennessee, those fans are going to be. They've stoked the flames, and then
it's going to be more brutal for Memphis if he doesn't play.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I will say this though: this idea that not having him play hasn't hurt the team is silly. We saw it the other night. Like, one of the things they struggle with? Figuring out how to make best use of James Wiseman, right? How to throw a inbound, how to get the ball into the post to James Wiseman. If you've played with him more and more and more, you know more about each other. But James Wiseman, fundamentally against Oregon, he was really good on putbacks, right? That's what he did. He took other people's misses and dunked it. But it didn't look like they were smooth in terms of ineffective and efficient in terms of operating with James Wiseman. I don't know. Don't you think that? To me, what it showed was this is not simply plug and play with James Wiseman. There are still things to learn when you're playing with him.
No doubt, especially since a lot of these teams are just going to pack the paint. Like, you saw Oregon go to a 2-3 kind of matchup zone look and just clog the paint and say, all right, anyone but James Wiseman beat us. And there were times where they looked totally disorganized on the offensive end. And they weren't really running any sets, and it was extremely frustrating.
Has Penny given a definitive answer to why they're not really running any sets? Is it he's calling them and they're not running it?
Here's the definitive answer. They had a perfect game plan. They did it 100% perfectly. They had a perfect scout. No one did anything that they've ever surprised them with. They knew exactly what was coming. They had a perfect game plan.
That has been the answer
for every game since he got
there.
Oh my gosh.
And that's not to take a shot. That's just to say
true.
you're not gonna get an answer other than that when you ask about basketball strategy.
It's so strange though to watch a coach just not call plays though. Like I don't know if it's by design whether they're trying to.
It's by design because he wants them to run and get in transition so that they don't have to call plays.
The thing with James though is that there's so clearly some great ways that you could use him. Some really cool inventive ways where you can get a 7'1" guy the ball moving towards the basket, or there were times where he had a smaller defender on him and they just couldn't give him a ball.
I don't think Penny would concede they don't run plays. Do you think he'd say that?
He's said multiple times
that
they don't want to run sets. Right. They don't want to run sets. Not that they don't. They don't want to run sets. And clearly they don't want to, because when they get down to the other end, there were times when they really weren't running much of anything.
I mean, Jay Bill has said it a million times on the broadcast about how unorganized
I have
they
heard
look.
that
It's
people were
different
very
between
frustrated.
disorganized and that they don't run sets. They did look disorganized. I'll be honest. Oregon also at times looked disorganized. Memphis looked more disorganized. It was not a good basketball game.
No,
honestly, like it wasn't. It looked like an early season sloppy basketball game. But you're exactly right. The reason that Oregon shot better than Memphis, it seems to me, was that Oregon got better shots than Memphis, unless they were shots off of turnover or something else.
Yeah, but the other thing to me besides that is, could we be headed for? Well, we will have to be once James Wiseman stops playing, but. Could we be headed for a starting lineup change, or is he going to still stick with these 5 freshmen? Because I was really impressed with the way Alex Lomax and Damian Ball kind of played off one another.
I don't think you're going to see Alex Lomax go into the starting lineup. I think if anybody's trending towards the starting lineup, it's probably DJ Jeffries, because he's very productive. There's not exactly one thing that DJ does well. You just put him on the floor, and it just seems like he makes plays wherever they need to be made at the time. So if there's anyone you think that might be trending that way, I would say it's probably DJ. He's going to stick with those 2 guards. I mean, he's going to stick with Boogie Ellis and Damian Ball. Damian Ball was super impressive in the Oregon game.
Yeah, he was really good.
He was really impressive. It was funny. Lester, in addition to stunning the country, of course, with his luminous legs, he was scrappy. Like, he was effective without shooting. He was just the opposite of what you would expect Lester to be. But he had an impact on that game.
Right. Yeah, and Lester, and the same thing happened with Boogie, where they were not taking shots in rhythm because they kept ending up with the ball in bad situations because they were holding and not moving, or it just seemed a little bit of a mess. And I think that they'll continue to work for it. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination that this is the team that we will see here in 2 months. I mean, I think they're going to get way better, but the point is that not having James may just slow that down just a tiny bit.
Yeah, you would hope by conference play that they're used to playing with him, and you still got him for as long as you can get him for the big games. Like, if he's available for Tennessee, if he's available for Georgia,
you want to look.
That gives you Georgia. 2 more big games to kind of see where you're at with him before you get to the conference. And so, and I know they play Tulane before they play Georgia, but I'm not even going to count Tulane as a conference game. But you would hope that even with the reduced amount of time, they're still going to be able to get everything together.
Yep.
And big thanks to Geoff Calkins for joining us. And now we'll take a break for a message from our sponsor.
The Daily Memphis Tigers podcast is brought to you by FedEx. Possibilities. What we deliver by delivering.
On to football, Jonah.
Football.
The Memphis Tigers will be playing at Houston this weekend. You will be there, correct?
It will. I will be in Houston. I'm leaving tomorrow.
And Mike Norvell will still be there, correct?
Yeah. Contrary to what some people believe, Mike Norvell is currently the coach of the Tigers and plans to be the coach of the Tigers going forward. I talked to him a little bit about some of that earlier.
Are you saying he's staying?
Oh, no.
His plans to be going forward is...
to the conference championship game. I think Mike's sole focus right now is to get through these 3 games in the conference championship. I don't think we will have much clarity before then, one way or the other. Right now, I'm kind of... from what I know, Arkansas is focused on Gus Malzahn. Florida State's focused on Bob Stoops. That can obviously change. It could change 5 minutes from now, but it's the coaching carousel and it spins faster than anything. But I don't know. I think for right now, Mike's sole focus is on Houston. People are going to keep asking about it him as much as he hates it, because it drives him crazy. Because the coaches don't like pulling focus away, but he's going to continue to say Memphis is one of the best jobs in America. He loves being at Memphis. The grass isn't always greener. It's the standard answer. They're excited for these last 3 games, kind of go out and show everybody what they got here at the final stretch. Any worry about Houston playing a little bit better? I mean, they played okay against UCF in that first half, but to be honest, they've been pretty bad this year, and it's been pretty hard to watch. Here's the hard part about figuring out what Houston's doing. Is you don't know who's going to play and who's not going to play. I can't sit here. I can tell you Clayton Tune's going to play. Beyond that, I'm like, I'm kind of just throwing up my hands, being like, I can't continue to search through your roster to see who is and who isn't redshirting. I know they had a running back who's playing really well, Mobakar, who's playing really well the last 2 weeks. It's like, oh, that's crazy. Memphis will have to prepare for him. Then I Google Mobakar, redshirt. Like it is beyond ridiculous at this point.
Did you? What's his name?
Mobakar.
I thought you said Mobile Car. That would have been an incredible running back name.
It would have been.
That would have rivaled Kenny Gainwell. But
You're such a nerd.
Mobile Car would be an awesome running back name.
But the Mobakar.
Mobakar is like close enough.
Yeah, he won't be playing, or neither will Mobakar.
Immobile Car.
So
Jonah, you didn't get that? You didn't pick up on that?
I'm just
one?
ignoring you.
Parked car.
Mobakar won't be playing. I expect Memphis to come out here jacked up. I think we may see Patrick Taylor. We've seen him in practice.
Interesting. I wanted to talk about this. What is the point in him? So there's it's a delicate situation,
yes,
correct?
Very
because
delicate.
You have on one side Patrick Taylor, who I'm sure would like to go to the NFL.
Yes.
And play in the NFL.
He would like that very much,
but
yes.
You don't really know what his draft grade will be exactly, considering he hasn't played all year, right? And so then maybe it might benefit him to come back next season, in which he would need to redshirt. And in order to redshirt, he would have to sit out these games against Houston and South Florida, and then he could play in the conference championship.
Well, here's the danger of that.
The Cincinnati game, conference championship, and the bowl game.
Here's the danger of him coming back for Cincinnati and the conference championship and the bowl game. Well, first, what if you lose Cincinnati?
Then, yes.
So, and then second, what if you come back against Cincinnati, you don't look like yourself, and then you lose? Like, that's a recipe for disaster for him. So, what I would do is, he's from Texas. He's from over there. He's got family coming to this game like crazy. He was asking other players for tickets. I would play him against Houston, see how he is, see where he's at. See, the big thing for Patrick has been finding himself. That's what I wrote about, is that he wants to find himself. He wants to be himself on the football field, and that's not going to come right away. You can't just throw him out there against Cincinnati, one of your toughest. That's the toughest defense Memphis is going to play in the back half of the season. They hit hard. Like, that's a big thing for Patrick. I say play him this week. Let him take off against USF. You probably won't need him. Probably going to be a lot of young guys playing in that game anyways. Then come back for Cincinnati, maybe the conference championship game, and then maybe the bowl game. But it is definitely a delicate balance that they're having to play.
And then you take your chances with the NFL.
Maybe. Or he could manage it. Maybe take 2 games off. But if he comes back and is as good as he was, then I bet I could see him playing the rest of the way and just going straight to the NFL.
So what do you expect will happen?
I think he'll play, and then we'll see where they're at on Monday, soreness-wise. That's what they've been doing. Practice once, evaluate soreness. Practice once, evaluate soreness. And they don't want him to re-injure himself. I don't think he'll be out there a ton. I think we'll see Kenny Gainwell get more carries, obviously. But
yeah,
I think he'll play.
I mean, people say you can't lose your job to an injury. He's not losing his job, but I mean, Kenny Gainwell has pretty much cemented himself as the number 1 back in this backfield, without question.
And it's not a knock on PT. It's not, because PT's fantastic.
It's just that Gainwell's been amazing.
He has been the best running back in the AAC, and I don't really know. I don't know if
you could argue the best running back in the country.
I think Chuba Hubbard has got him there, but yeah, he's close.
You could argue it. It's arguable.
Yeah, I think explosion-wise, I think Kenny Gainwell has some of the most explosive plays in the country. He is doing crazy things from the line of scrimmage. He doesn't need kick return yards to pad that stat, to pad the stats like other guys do for total yardage, and he's been able to do it all from the line of scrimmage, which has been incredible.
And then after that, you go into South Florida and a home game against Cincinnati. So what are their chances of running the table, so to speak, and getting? You do. You think they're good?
I think they'll do it. I think they'll probably beat Houston by a touchdown or 2-3 touchdowns, blast South Florida, and probably get Charlie Strong out of there, and then end of the season. That's going to be a scrappy battle with Cincinnati. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really, really tough. And the toughest part about all of this is if you beat Cincinnati twice or beat Cincinnati once, they come right back a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever it is. And it's so difficult to beat a team twice, especially a physical team like that, and especially back-to-back. So it's going to be a challenge, but I think they're going to do it. Right now, tentatively, I expect Memphis to make it into the Cotton Bowl, but...
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big prediction.
Yeah.
That would require beating Cincinnati 2 times in a row.
That's what I just said. Your listening skills are just out of this world today.
I'm trying to look up the FPI and see what they give Memphis chances to win out, but I can't find it. You don't happen to know that stat off the top of your head, do you?
No.
I believe it's under 50%. So you would be going against the computers with that prediction.
I don't believe in computers. So I believe in what I got right up here. My eyes. I pointed to my brain when I said that, but I got my eyes. No, I think that it's going to be difficult.
The win out percentage from FPI, it's actually just 10.7%. But 10.7%, you really don't believe in computers in that case.
I don't think Houston can beat them. I know South Florida can't beat them. And then Cincinnati, I just haven't been thoroughly impressed on this back. Like, they're beating people, but
it doesn't worry you at all that, like, maybe in all reality, they probably should have lost to Tulsa, you know?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They've played some games close.
Here's the thing.
I'm just trying to play a little devil's advocate here.
Alabama should have beaten Auburn before the kick six.
Correct.
I mean, every team, I hate to use this term, every team of destiny or every great team has breaks throughout the year.
Yeah.
Everyone does. And in all honesty, I believe to be one of those great teams, you need breaks. And
I think you could argue that Memphis sure looks like a team of destiny right now.
Yeah.
With that kick and then game day and all that.
If Memphis had gotten down the field and beaten Temple, 100% team of destiny. Like the review kind of deflated that a little bit. They should be undefeated right now.
It's part of the story.
Yeah, and they should be undefeated right now. They should be fighting for a chance to go play Cincinnati and win the conference championship and be 13-0, but it's a little bit different right now. I don't think Cincinnati won't be there. I think UCF losing kind of means that Cincinnati would have to lose twice before even playing Memphis. So I don't think that's going to happen.
So do you think there's a chance SMU could lose again, and in which Memphis would then, if they lost again?
So SMU has Tulane, Navy, and...
Well, Navy's tough.
Yeah, Navy's tough. Navy plays Notre Dame. Navy's a sneaky one because if Memphis loses again, and they could sneak in there, but they've got Notre Dame this weekend. That's in South Bend. That's another tough game. But, I think SMU could lose, but I just don't see Memphis losing. I don't see Memphis losing. I don't. So it won't matter what SMU and Navy do the rest of the way. I just don't see them losing.
Anything else before you travel down there to Houston?
No, nothing else. Just to read the Daily Memphian. We'll have a story up about how Kenny Gainwell's being great at offense has kind of helped Brady White a little bit. Got a couple other stories about how about Mike Norvell thinks Memphis's future is bright. A variety of other things. We got James Wiseman coverage from you.
James Wiseman coverage, Oregon coverage. I hope that we get our answer as to what the next steps are.
You know how mad I'm going to be if they release his suspension or whatever it will be. They release the settlement before we drop this podcast.
Don't even speak it into existence, Jonah.
I'm going to be upset because we'll have to do the redo the whole entire thing.
In all seriousness, though, I know Geoff has heard that this thing could be coming soon, and I've heard sort of similar things, and I know everybody's on their toes, waiting to hear the news. So now it's time to just sit back and see what the NCAA is going to do and enjoy your awesome football team when they play Houston this weekend, and read all of Jonah's coverage about it. But thank you for listening. You can follow me on social media at Drew_Hill_DM. You can follow Jonah on Twitter @_Jonah Jordan. And you can find this podcast or any other Daily Memphian podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. Thanks for listening.
We deliver tickets, team merchandise, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.